on industry, science, and technology. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of September 23rd, 2020. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So you are aware the website will also show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. To ensure an orderly meeting, I'd like to outline a few rules as usual. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. For members participating in person, please proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in the committee room. Keep in mind the directives from Board of Internal Economy regarding masking and health protocols. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on video conference, please click on your microphone to unmute yourself. For those in the room, the microphone will be controlled as normal by the proceedings and verification officer. A reminder that all comments must be addressed through the chair. When you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. With regard to the speaking list, the clerk and I will be doing our best to maintain the speaking order. Pursuant to Standing Order 81-4, the committee is meeting today to continue its study on the main estimates 2020-21. As is my normal practice, I will hold up the yellow card for when you have 30 seconds left in your intervention and red card for when your time is up. Please respect the time limits as we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to have their turn. I'd like to now welcome our witnesses for the first panel. We have the Honorable Navdeep Bains, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, and the Honorable Melanie Joly, Minister of Economic Development and Official Languages. And I will introduce our other guests at the end of this first panel at the beginning of the next so that we do not delay any further. With that, I will turn the floor over to Minister Bains. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I want to start by thanking the committee members for inviting me here today to discuss some priorities in my portfolio's main estimates. And for all the important work that you do on behalf of Canadians, thank you very much. Depuis le début de la pandémie COVID-19, la santé et
COVID-19 pandemic, the health and security of Canadians is the absolute priority of our government. This means that we had to make sure that workers, frontline workers.
Yes, Mr. Drishan?
Both the French and the English are coming through at the same volume.
Minister Bains, if you were speaking in French, could you switch to French? And if you're speaking English, switch to English, only because I think you don't have the latest version of Zoom on your computer. My apologies. Please continue.
Je comprends. Merci beaucoup.
I understand. Thank you. This means that we had to make sure that frontline workers receive the equipment they needed to do their work. And we are hoping to find a vaccine that's efficient quite soon to fight against the COVID-19.
This year, virtually no Canadian production of personal protective equipment in a precarious international marketplace. But after launching our Made in Canada project and industry stepping up to the plate, I am proud to say that we are now sourcing close to 50% of our personal protective equipment from Canadian companies. Over 6,500 companies responded to our call to action to rapidly scale up domestic production of PPE. And these firms are helping to keep frontline healthcare workers safe while also providing key manufacturing jobs through these difficult times. And on the vaccine front, we're seeing great progress on development projects right here in Canada. Through our investments in companies like VBI, Medicago, and INV, our government is growing Canada's capacity to find and produce a domestic vaccine to COVID-19. And overall, this pandemic has made it clear that Canadian industries and its workers are strong, adaptive, and resilient. As we set out on the long road of economic recovery, we must also tap into the strength to build back better and equitable and a greener Canada. Our industries and entrepreneurs will have a crucial role to play and are already rising to the occasion Our government is there to support them with strategic investments that spur innovation and help create good quality Canadian jobs. And the Innovation Superclusters Initiative, for example, has been an integral part of our Made in Canada response, supporting projects ranging from large scale disinfecting robots to personalized digital mental health care for frontline workers. And moving forward, we're going to need to be strategic with global industries moving towards sustainability, developing domestic manufacturing in electric vehicles and batteries. This will position Canada's auto industry as a global leader in a growing market and help us achieve our climate ambition. De même, le secteur aérospatial canadien a toujours été particulièrement innovateur et adaptable.
Always been quite innovative and adaptable. And so the priority is to support the supply chain, the research and development in the area of aviation, and our supply and an advantageous supply policy at the national level. The Canadian aerospace industry and its workers will be well positioned to support the market.
And the increase of Canadians' online activity since March has also reinforced our government's commitment to addressing the concerns that Canadians have about their digital privacy. This last week, I introduced Bill C-11 to enact the Consumer Privacy Protection Act. And this legislation would give Canadians more control and greater transparency over how companies handle their personal information. Il donnerait au commissaire.
It will give the privacy commissioner the concrete powers to render decrees to make sure that there is the protection for the private lives of Canadians. And there will be higher fines amongst the G7 countries in terms of violations of privacy.
Absolutely. Just in conclusion, I would just say that we're focusing on these important challenges. This is important for us as a government as we look to restart and rebuild the economy. It's about investing in Canadians, their ideas, their ingenuity, and together I know we can build back better. And I look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Madame la Ministre, vous avez la...
Madam Minister, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. The interpreter has lost the sound. Maybe you seem to be on mute. Oh, sorry. I'm doing too many things. I'm worrying about translation. I'm touching buttons. Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable members, for being here, to appear before you. It's always a pleasure.
In late April, Canada's COVID-19 economic response plan has helped protect millions of jobs, provided emergency support to families, and kept businesses afloat as they deal with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Alors que la deuxième
The second wave is hitting hard, and these are extraordinary, very difficult times for us. As elected officials, we have a common responsibility to be an example, but also being reassuring through our presence. Since the start of this crisis, the government has been present. We have listened and made adjustments in assistance offered to people so that our social safety net protects those who really need it.
like the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy and the Canada Emergency Business Account. A critical part of our response has been the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, which we call the Triple RF. Delivered through the 6th regional development agencies, the fund helps businesses and non-for-profit organizations that may not be eligible for other programs or that require additional assistance. It has proven to be a lifeline for businesses that might otherwise not have survived. Dans les collectivités
In rural communities, we have increased funding for assistance to development with businesses can have access to capital and technical support.
RRF in May, it has assisted more than 12,000 businesses, helping them cover costs and protect more than 100,000 jobs across the country. It has been vital in helping them keep their employees, pay their bills, and prepare for a more sustainable future. But in the midst of a second wave and in the face of an alarming increase of COVID-19 cases in some parts of the country, many businesses across the country find themselves on shaky ground. That's why just last month, our government announced that it would provide an additional $600 million to support workers and businesses through the RRF. This will bring our RRF support through the regional development agencies to more than $1.5 billion to further help businesses and organizations weather the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And over the past several months, I've heard firsthand through phone calls and video teleconferences from many businesses and organizations that have benefited from what they have described this as a very much welcome support. Par l'entremise des SADC.
Through these institutions in Quebec, we have supported over 3,400 businesses, providing technical assistance, and we've protected 15,000 jobs, especially in northern Quebec in Abitibi, Témiscamingue. I think my colleague Sébastien Lamy will be quite interested by these facts.
Businesses and communities respond to challenges.
Partout au Canada, nous avons aidé les communautés et les entreprises.
For example, and I'm convinced John will want to have more information about that. In Stratford to adapt to the loss of the festival, working with Edmonton Global to attract investments and promote trade. James, convinced you may be interested in that information as well. Or funding an incubator in Toronto that will help entrepreneurs from underrepresented groups. Nate, if you want information about that, I'm here as well. Madame la Présidente,
Madam Chair, we know that businesses in the tourism sector are hard hit by this crisis. So thanks to the RRF and the measures put in place by our government, we've been able to assist several tourism industry businesses, but we know that the work must go on, and it's going on because their situation is quite unique.
Working with tourism stakeholders as of course they're dealing with the impact of the pandemic. Businesses of all size have been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund is here for them. So I hear you, Madam Chair, and I see you, Madam Chair. We're here to reaffirm that the government has their back to businesses, obviously. And of course, I'm willing to answer the questions of my colleagues regarding anything the regional development agencies have been doing during the context of this pandemic. And of course, our officials, Nav and mine, are here to answer any specific questions as well. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre. And so with that, we will.
Minister.
Our first round of questions goes to MP Cumming. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both ministers for appearing today. And sorry, Minister Baines, I missed your C11 announcement in the House given the conflict with this committee, but we'll see you this afternoon, I'm sure. Mr. Baines, I want to start with you. In your opinion, a simple question here, in your opinion, has the LEAF program been successful?
Thank you very much for that question. And as you know, we had a range of programs designed to support Canadians, designed to support Canadian businesses, And we wanted to make sure that these programs were made available because not only are we dealing with the health crisis, but we're dealing with economic fallout. And we needed to have a range of programs, including LEAP, to assist businesses during these challenging times.
But more specifically, so there's two Canadian companies that have received loans under this program. Would you define that as successful?
I think it's important to note that success is about protecting Canadian jobs. It's about helping Canadian workers. It's looking at the different regional impacts of the economic fallout and making sure that we are in a position moving forward as we restart the economy to have a strong economic rebound. And so we recognize we need to have a range of programs, which includes relief as well, to protect workers and to protect different businesses in the regions across the country.
Minister Baines, two loans, 4.5 million spent in consulting fees. Do you think that is a good return on investment, given that there's just been two loans?
I think it's important to recognize that when we design these programs, that we have the appropriate due diligence in place, that we recognize that there's rigor in dealing with taxpayers' money. And it's important that we move in a manner that speaks to the program design, which was about being the lender of last resort and being there to help with any bridge financing that was needed to protect Canadian jobs, to protect Canadian workers. And this is about making sure that during these difficult times, particularly in the pandemic, that we have these tools in place to support our workers across the country.
So I want to move on to a couple other things on the Connect to Innovate goal. In the $500 million announcement, you promised to connect 300 rural communities in Canada. How many are connected to date?
I'm so glad you talked about the Connect to Innovate program. It was a program designed with the public-private partnership model. We as a government invested $500 million. The private sector matched that dollar for dollar. And we set out an original goal of connecting over 300 communities. And I can tell you right now that we're going to exceed that number substantially. And particularly, we're going to be able to assist our Indigenous communities as well. And projects are well underway, and we're working with different providers and communities across the country, particularly in rural and remote.
We had Minister Monsif here and speaking to this program, and she directed me to a website and said, listen, if you want some accountability, look at that website. And currently that website would say that only 47 communities are connected. There's various stages of where they're at. So when can we expect the balance of the 253 communities to be operational?
So we are focused on connectivity. Access is the first principle in the digital charter. And today, as you indicated in the House, I also talk about the Digital Charter Implementation Act, which talks about the other aspects and principles in that. And it's important that we move forward with these projects. That is why we had to have that public-private partnership to enable us to connect with those communities. And as I've indicated, projects are well underway, and we've also supplemented that program with the Universal Broadband Fund, as well as investments to low Earth orbit satellites to provide additional support for communities so they can get access to high-speed internet connectivity.
But Minister Baines, if you look at this, and given that I was directed to the site, only 47 communities are connected. So of that 253 to go with your target of 2021, is it realistic that we're actually going to see that target made?
I think it's important to note that program design, making sure that we have a process in place where companies are able to apply to the program, get approval, all those major hurdles we've overcome. Now we're focused on implementation, and we're confident that we're moving in the right direction. And we're focusing and targeting those key communities that need access to high speed internet connectivity.
The universal broadband on the first range of funding, the first $1 billion, what percentage of that funding has actually been allocated to date?
The Universal Broadband Fund has a couple of components. One of it is the Rapid Response Initiative, which is designed for short-term projects to help support the communities most in need and creating flexibility with the program design. And my colleague, Minister Monsef, is in charge of that fund, and she's made a very clear commitment that the goal is to get those monies out as soon as possible so we can support those communities.
So would you not agree that we've got funds that were started in early in your mandate, new funds announced? I think there's 5 current funds that are dealing with broadband, and particularly with rural broadband. Would it not make some sense to have a more comprehensive strategy under one fund so you could monitor results and make sure that Canadians are getting that connectivity that they want and simplify it for those suppliers?
The goal,
Very quickly.
the goal is to leverage the different tools we have in our toolbox. So you're right, the CRTC has a fund in place. The infrastructure bank is looking at this. We've put forward 2 meaningful programs. We've also made changes to the accelerated capital cost allowance to further accelerate investments. And I'm confident all of these initiatives together will enable us to reach the ambitious goals we've set and deal with the digital divide.
Thank you, Minister. And just a reminder to the MPs, please keep an eye on the cards because I want to make sure everyone gets their time. Our next MP is MP Duguid. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the ministers for their excellent presentations and being with us today. My questions are for Minister Joly. As she will know, I'm a very proud Westerner from Manitoba, and no region of the country has been hit harder than the West, the provinces of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia. And I wonder if the minister could amplify on the triple RF, which she has talked about in her presentation, and how it has specifically helped our region. I know I have been on calls with her, with hundreds of businesses, many chambers of commerce. If she could talk about the triple RF funding, particularly as it relates to the West, the double whammy, the triple whammy, I think she knows what I'm talking about. Minister.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to see you. Thank you for the question. Obviously, we know that the Western economy has been impacted by the pandemic, but also by the fact that there's been a drop in oil prices, and we call that the double whammy. We're very much aware of what's going on right now. Based on that, we decided to really work with Western economic diversification. And through the great work of you, my dear colleague, Terry Dugold, who's my parliamentary secretary, and many of our colleagues, we've been able to double the budget of Western economic diversification because we saw that there was a clear need to do more. And in that sense, we tried also to work with the community futures organizations, the CFDCs, all across the West to make sure that the money was not only going to businesses that needed support in our big major cities, but also in the smaller towns across rural, the rural parts of the West. I also think that the West is not a monolithic block. It is not all the same. There are clear, specific needs in the prairies, and there are clear, specific needs in BC. And that's what we've been trying to do, to go closer to the ground, to do the right partnerships, and really to make sure that we protect jobs all across the West. So based on that, we have been able to protect more than 23,000 jobs within a couple of months by making sure that there would be interest-free loans, so support through these small and medium-sized businesses across across the West through Western economic diversification.
Well, thank you, Minister. And I know you've been a champion for the West, even though you're a proud Montrealer. And you look at the whole country and all of the regional development agencies. You've also been a champion for tourism. Tourism in the previous parliament it didn't have the highest profile, frankly, and you raised it up. You were able to argue and procure a budget for tourism. But we know that tourism is really the sector that is really been hit the hardest. And I wonder if you could talk about, one, the tourism journey that you've been on and why tourism is so important to our country and what you are doing now. I know there's been some sector-specific initiatives in Ontario, and perhaps you're looking at other regions of the country as well.
Thank you, Terry. So In 2019, we went through our best year ever when it comes to international tourism. And I had the chance to be the minister in charge of the best year, but also now of the worst year since the Second World War. In 2019, we had 21.1 million international tourists coming to Canada, and that supported 1.8 million jobs, 4% of all the jobs across the country. Now we know this sector has been really impacted by the border closures, and it is affecting our downtown cores in Winnipeg, in Toronto, in Montreal, but it is also affecting a lot of towns across the country, from the Windsor Essex region to beautiful Atlantic Canada and BC. So what we've done is we've made sure that these businesses had access to wage subsidy until next June, that there would be the CBA account, the $40,000 loans, which are now $60,000 loans with a part forgivable, and also the rent relief and fixed cost support, which was awarded through the C9 legislation, which is now into force, thanks to all the colleagues. But also through the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. So the RRF has been extremely helpful for businesses, and we've been able to support many across the country. Actually, a very high level of businesses in the tourism sector came to see us because sometimes they were falling through the cracks, and we wanted to help them. So just to give you an example, in the tourism sector in Western Canada, we've been able to support 15,000 jobs only in the tourism sector.
And my final question, Minister, because we're running out of time, regards the RRF again, and the second round of funding. I was very honored to, on your behalf, announce 2.8 million in RRF funding for business ecosystem support. It's supporting 5,600 jobs. How is that funding a little different than the first round?
Unfortunately, you are completely over your time, MP Duguid. My apologies. Hopefully the minister will get that, be able to answer that question in a subsequent round. On va maintenant avec député Lemire.
So, MP Lemire, you have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the ministers for being here. My first question is for Minister Baines on competition. After the agro-food groups that came out, this is a little too fast. Unfortunately, that's too fast for interpretation. Sorry. That's too fast for interpretation. We will stop and wait for an improvement.
Le 11 août dernier, auquel vous n'avez pas fait suite. I believe it's too fast.
Yes, that's too fast, way too fast, and we don't have a copy of his text.
Madam Chair, the interpreter is saying that my honorable colleague is speaking too fast for interpretation, and you might want to start the clock again because there was no interpretation the entire time.
Okay. Donc, député Lemire.
Mr. Lemire, is it possible to speak a little slower for the interpretation? I'm pleased to find out that our colleagues, our Anglophone colleagues, are living what we go through here every day. They go too fast also. I thank the interpreters for their good work. Can I start from the beginning, Madam Chair? Yes, go ahead. Mr. Baines, following the public outing from several groups talking about the additional... I'm sorry, this is exactly the same as the last part. The interpreter has to stop service and ask for better working conditions.
On t'écoute. Merci, Mélanie.
We are listening. Madam Jolie, thank you. The different fees, as we sent to you by email, my colleague Yves Parent, last August, you did not answer. Can you ask the Competition Tribunal to do an investigation?
Je voudrais remettre.
I would like to thank my colleague for his question. I understand this is a very difficult and complex situation. I understand your frustration, and I would continue my answer in English, if you don't mind.
As well. So I'll speak in both official languages. And I just want to again say that I understand the frustration and the concern raised by the honorable colleague. It is absolutely disappointing to see grocers impose these costly fees, which fall on thousands of Canadian food producers who are working hard to feed Canadians and support their communities during these challenging times. Food producers and processors and the workers have played a critical role. And I've said this on numerous occasions in the House of Commons during the pandemic. And these are essential workers that are providing critical support. And we recognize that the issues raised by the members opposite, and we share the concerns about a fair market practices that should exist.
Je comprends qu'il n'y a pas de réponse directe à notre question qu'on vous a.
I know there is no direct answer to the question we asked. The Yale report recommends that you, Mr. Benz, present an annual report to Parliament on the deployment of broadband services in remote communities. The interpreter is summarizing because this is still going way too fast. Will you present a report on public-private partnership? And I did some consultation in Abitibi. Public investment is not profitable. In 2026, we will still be part of the. It will be difficult to make any profits for the industry. Were you able to find solutions to that?
En anglais, très rapidement, quickly. The tribunal is independent, the Competition Bureau is independent, so they will look into the matter as they see fit. Et en français.
Yes, I understand the situation when it comes to high-speed internet. That's why we have invested in innovation. There are other programs that will assist people throughout Canada, especially in the Quebec region, and we will continue to work hard every day to find solutions to improve the situation for citizens, especially at this time, because high-speed internet, it's no longer a luxury, it's absolutely essential. That's why it's an absolute priority for our government. I'm pleased to hear you say that. As far as research, when there is an economic slowdown, businesses set aside money for research. So there is a drop in funds for research, a partnership with universities and SAGEPs. We see that especially in Quebec. Can your government put in place a regional fund to fund research to support partnership-style research? That would be a very good idea. That's why we have invested in science, research, and development. There are a lot of initiatives along those lines that have improved our ability to work together when it comes to industry and academia. We will continue finding solutions. It's absolutely necessary to have a strategy for our economy. And thank you for your question. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Madam Jolie, the federal gives funding for cultural communities in innovation and environment. That's part of the mission of the SADSCs. Wouldn't they be better placed to work with people and their communities? The question, when will you increase this funding for economic communities? Yes, these groups are very important. That's why, since the start of our mandate, we improved the budget for SADCs. It's about 120 million right now. So, with the pandemic, we have made improvements. I think we can have some good discussions with the networks of these organizations to see how we can increase their impact at the economic level and also at the community level, I would be pleased to have discussions with them on those issues. Because as we get out of the pandemic, we'll be working on the recovery, and we would like to make sure that the recovery is green and that it's inclusive, and those organizations will be part of the solution. Thank you.
Backrack, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the ministers for the opportunity to ask some questions. I'm sitting in for Mr. Massey, who has to be in the House right now, and he's provided me with some questions, but I'd like to ask some questions of Minister Baines with regard to rural broadband. The region that I represent in Northwest BC is profoundly rural, very small communities and many people living in remote settings. I was very interested by this report on telecommunications that was completed back in January. I believe that you're familiar with it. I think the title is called Time to Act, Canada's Telecommunications Future. And there's a portion in it under the broadband section, and I'll just read it. It says, despite the many programs working toward the goal of universal connectivity at the federal level, no minister is specifically accountable to Parliament for the achievement of this objective. I asked this question of Minister McKenna at the Infrastructure Committee, and she went on about coordination and a bunch of other stuff. I did ask her if she was in charge, and so I will extend the same question to you. Are you in charge of accountability and delivering on the promise that 98% of Canadians are going to have broadband by 2026?
Well, thank you very much for your question. With regards to accountability and responsibility, it's important to note there's several ministers that have different initiatives and programs that we're coordinating with one another. So it's a whole of government approach. We recognize that we have different levers and different abilities to have a positive impact. And we're using all the necessary resources we need to be able to make sure that we deal with the connectivity issue. We're leaving no stone unturned. And that is why, for me, I'm very proud of the fact that when my colleague, Minister Monsef, announced the Universal Broadband Fund, I also was able to highlight our support for low Earth orbit satellite solutions, which are critical for those northern communities, those remote communities, to deal with the latency issue, because this technology enables these satellites, which are only about approximately 2,000 kilometers away from the Earth's surface. It enables us to be able to provide that high-speed internet connectivity. And so we think we've got a range of solutions and a range of programs to deal with this. And we're focused now on implementation and dealing with that digital divide, because as you alluded to in your question, right now more than ever, Canadians need access to high-speed internet connectivity because they're working online, learning online more than they ever have before, and this is essential for their success.
Well, Minister, through the chair, I didn't hear the answer to my question in there, and I guess that the only minister left to ask is Minister Monsef. So I'll look forward to doing so at the earliest opportunity. Maybe I could just ask: do you recognize this deficiency that's been highlighted in this report? And I can read further that it says there are a number of gaps of different programs and funds addressing gaps in the broadband coverage. At the federal level, there is potential duplication of effort among the CRTC, ISID, and other government departments. And it speaks specifically to the fact that there is no single minister specifically accountable for these promises. Do you agree that this is a problem in achieving the objectives?
I think it's absolutely essential to recognize that different ministers and different departments have different tools and levers and programs at their disposal, and we need to leverage everything to the fullest potential. And this is why it's a whole of government approach. We are focused on coordinating with one another, and I do recognize that we have stepped up in a big way by not only introducing programs but providing the resources. The Universal Broadband Fund is $1.75 billion. The low Earth orbit satellite constellation service access is $600 million. These are significant amounts that will enable us to achieve the goal of high-speed internet connectivity in rural and remote communities. And we're going to continue to coordinate and work with one another. And I take pride in working with Minister Monsef, Minister McKenna, and others who understand the importance of high-speed internet connectivity.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Minister. The problem is that when no one is in charge, there can be no accountability. So I look forward to asking Minister Monsef if she's in charge of this file. My other question around rural broadband is really around the approach. So essentially, the approach we have right now, there's a pool of money made available by the federal government. And the federal government looks to private companies to come forward with proposals for serving rural residents with broadband. And those proposals are always proposals in which the company can put together a viable business case. However, there are many sparsely populated areas in which it is extremely difficult to put together a business case. How are we going to serve those residents in sparsely populated remote areas where it's difficult to put together a profitable model for delivering broadband?
So there's two components to your question that I will speak to. Again, I just want to underscore the fact that the ISED department shares the working group with the different departments and ministers to coordinate the efforts around rural connectivity. And that is leadership and that's accountability. And that's why I'm here to answer your questions. In the model, oh, I see the red card.
Unfortunately, you're over, Minister. So I'm just again going to remind members that when I show you the 30 seconds, that means you do not have time to start asking a lengthy question because I do not want to cut people off at the end of this meeting. With that, I will go to the second round. We have MP Steinley. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the ministers present today. I'll be sending my questions in the directions of Minister Jolie. But first, I want to thank Mr. Duguid and Jolie for giving me a glimpse into the psyche of Liberals when talking about Western Canada. It's a rare opportunity where I can see two Liberal members have that discussion. And Minister Jolie, you were very happy about saving 23,000 jobs in Western Canada. Except prior to COVID-19, Alberta and Western Canada lost almost 200,000 jobs. So it's really like cheering in a hockey game, scoring your first goal, but you're still down 10-1. So that's something that you guys should keep in mind is before COVID-19, there was a double whammy in Western Canada. It was called Bill C-69 and Bill C-48, the No More Pipelines Bill and the Anti-Tanker Bill. Also, the carbon tax has continued to cripple our economy, and you increase the carbon tax every April 1st, which is a terrible April Fool's joke on Western Canadians. I'm going to focus some of my questions towards the program, the Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Program. And in the estimates now, the spending was supposed to be $631,726. And I'm wondering, it combines Southern Ontario, Quebec, Western diversification, Northern Ontario economic diversification. And I'm wondering, is there a complete list of programs that has funded, and could you table that with the committee?
Well, thank you, dear colleague. It is a pleasure for me to have the chance to talk to you for the first time directly about what we're doing for the West. Obviously, you know, I've had the chance to talk to many business people in the West, from the different members of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, the Calgary and Edmonton Chambers of Commerce, the Saskatchewan Chambers of Commerce, and the Saskatoon and the Regina Chambers of Commerce, and the same for the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce and the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, and same for BC. And clearly, I'm very much aware also of not only the anxiety that is going through the people in the West that live off of many of the fossil fuel sector. And I'm very much aware also that the reality is different from British Columbia. Now, since the beginning of our mandate, we've done a lot in the regional economic development file to support Western economic diversification, which had been cut, and that's sad, by 50 million under the Harper government, as the West was already going through difficult times. So what we've done is we've increased before the pandemic the budget, and that was under the responsibility of my dear colleague Nat Baines, who's with us. And also now we've doubled the budget of Western Economic Diversification.
Thank you
Do we
very
need to
much.
do more? We need to do more. And it will be a pleasure for me to be working with you. And of course, we will table the documentation that you're asking for.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Do you know that record spending isn't a government policy goal, and it should be something where you're creating jobs, not just spending more money? So, to the original question, can I have a list to this committee, please, of all the programs done through the Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Program?
So of course, it is important for us to be providing that information for you, for members of the opposition, but also for the public. I know that my esteemed public servants are on this call. Simon Kennedy, my deputy minister, is with us, as well as the CFO for ISED, and of course, we will be providing that information.
Thank you very much. In the revised estimates, there's going to be $200 million more dollars spent through this program. Could I also get an update for this committee on the extra $200 million that is going to be spent through this program?
The idea of supporting more businesses is because what we saw through Western Economic Diversification was there was really an uptake in the program. Many businesses needed more support, and more than in other parts of the country. And so that's why what we've done
Thank you. I
was
have one
to
more quick
increase the
question, Madam
budget,
Chair.
and therefore we've been providing more money to Western Economic Diversification than other agencies to deal with some of the backlog that we were facing.
Thank you
And
so
that's
much.
why
Is
there's
there
more
a
money, and that's why we
connection
will be
between the Regional
providing the
Economic Growth
information.
through Innovation Program and the RRF program?
Unfortunately, you're out of time, Mr. Steinley. So hopefully another round, the minister will be able to answer that question. We now turn to MP Lambropoulos. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Oui, bonjour. Merci, Madame la
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions for Minister Baines. Thank you for being here to answer our questions today. As you well know, currently our committee has taken a study on connectivity and affordability of internet. And as far as the affordability, you said that the Innovation, Science and Industry wishes to reduce the cost of cell phones by 25%. That's a great plan because Canadians have the highest rates in the world. Could you provide us some details on the progress on this file? And also tell us what tools are used by the department to encourage and promote affordability.
Vous êtes en sourdine.
Merci pour.
I think you're on mute. Thank you for your question. You're right. It's very essential to have a strategy to reduce cell phone costs. That's why we have come up with a plan. After 3 months, every 3 months, we do a progress report. We have come up with some progress reports, and right now the situation is improving. We hope things improve over time, especially as far as all regions in Canada are concerned. And you're right, we would like to have greater connectivity to high-speed internet, have better access, and I would like to have a strategy at the government level. That's why I'm working with my colleagues, Minister Munster, Minister McKenna, and together I'm sure we can come up with the right solutions to improve the situation for all Canadians. Thank you. And as far as that was more for affordability. As far as connectivity specifically, can you tell us what the role of the government and the role of your department more specifically is in improving access to high-speed internet? How could we offer better assistance to Canadians?
So there's a few elements to your question. I think it's important to note that we need to have more competition and more choice. And that is why we've used the spectrum auctions as a means to create carve-outs for regional players. This will enable more competition, which will reduce the prices. And we've had a very clear strategy when it comes to our 600 megahertz or 3500 megahertz. The 3800 that we're currently in consultations for all demonstrate the importance of using spectrum strategically to promote more competition. And we believe this will help reduce prices. When it comes to cell phone prices, we have a quarterly report and that tracks the mid-range plans because we've seen traditionally some reduction in prices in the lower end plan and some in the higher end plan. But those mid-range plans were not going down. The prices were not decreasing. So we set a very clear target of making sure that between the 2 to 6 gigabyte space that those plans should go down by 25%. And for greater accountability and transparency, we're providing quarterly updates and quarterly reports to Canadians to demonstrate progress in different regions across the country when it comes to those cell phone plans. And we feel that's putting pressure into the marketplace for the telecommunication companies to deliver on that. They recognize that if they fail to do so, that we will deploy other tools to promote more competition. And right now, we're starting to see some progress in that area, and we're confident that in the coming months, Canadians will see a further reduction in their cell phone bills because, again, of our focus on competition and choice, as well as greater transparency with the quarterly reports that Canadians can go online and see.
Thank you very much. We actually met with the telecom companies a little bit earlier on and during the summer, and they seemed quite reluctant, I have to be honest, to reduce their prices. And they were saying that if we expect them to increase internet access, that we should lower expectations. What's your response to this?
They know affordability is our number one priority. We have to strike that right balance, of course, with investments, and that's going to be critical. But we need to see prices go down. As I indicated, high-speed internet connectivity is not a luxury; it's essential, and it's important that Canadians have access to good quality networks at affordable prices.
Thank you, Minister. Notre prochain tour, c'est...
Our next turn is Mr. Lemire. You have the floor for 2.5 minutes. So, to complete your answer, Minister Joly, the budgets for communities, it's not for regional development, but to fund services. We have to review that. It's just to assist organizations to have a better vision. Do you think budgets for phase 1 and 2 of the FIRE program, that this could be recurrent for the common funds of all SADCs, this regional development groups?
Merci, mon cher collègue.
Thank you, dear colleague. Why am I raising the issue of quadrupling the budget for SADCs? This is the assistance from the Canadian government for these agencies. When the corporations have to refund the money they obtained through the agencies, they will keep them. They will not hand them back over to the Canadian government. So the SADCs are being recapitalized. They will be able to lend out monies that they got. So it's a legacy project, but I'm pleased to work with you on several issues. We know that a lot of these loans will be refunded, and there would be a bigger impact in Quebec, especially because of this. And please, thank you for this program. RRFs said there would be no drop in the funding for SADCs. We think regional development should be administered by the regions. Quebec should make the decisions for the future. And Canada should limit itself to the Constitution, transfer funds to the Quebec jurisdiction so that they can work in shared jurisdiction to support territorial innovation. What about a regional fund for economic diversification to process our natural resources and working with the Canadian and Quebec government together? The Canadian government vision and the Liberal party's vision is to involve the regions through these economic development groups in the regions. That's why they were created. That's why they have so much impact in Quebec. We have decided to go even further, getting closer to the ground, having networks set up in our regions. So your idea of regional funds, I'll be pleased to discuss that with you, but it comes from a common vision, a common philosophy, which is on doing more for our regions. Thank you, Minister. Our next round.
For 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies for not seeing the red card in my last round of questions. I have a few more broadband questions for Minister Baines. Minister Baines, one of the dimensions of this really vital need for broadband in rural areas, one of the important dimensions is affordability. And my understanding is that your government's key strategy for delivering broadband affordability is competition. Yet in many rural areas, the market simply isn't big enough to support multiple competitors. What is your government's approach to ensuring affordable broadband in rural and remote parts of Canada?
Well, thank you very much for your question. And your question underscores the strategy that we are deploying, which is how do we promote competition? How do we create more regional players that can provide self-service as well as high-speed internet connectivity options? And how do they service rural and remote communities? We're working with local internet service providers as well to partner up with them. So we're looking at all possible options of promoting more competition and supporting local companies that can provide this solution so that consumers can have more choice. And the objective is when we have more competition, we are confident that the prices will go down. And the balancing act is making sure that the prices are affordable for consumers. And at the same time, we have the environment where we can continue to see meaningful investments. And that is why we put forward these programs to help de-risk some of those investments, particularly to those rural and remote communities that need high-speed internet connectivity.
The problem, Madam Chair, is that when you support these small independent internet providers, often as soon as they're successful, they get bought out by TELUS. This isn't working. We don't see that competition. I wonder if the minister can respond to that.
One of the ways we're looking at addressing competition is having a set aside through our spectrum auction. We know spectrum is critical for telecommunication companies. And when we have set asides for spectrum, we know that will create stronger regional players, enable them to get more market share, enable them to provide more affordable options. And we know that's good for Canadians and consumers across the country.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now go to MP Dreeshen. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and happy to have a chance to speak to the ministers this morning. Just one little comment. Mr. Baines, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, its Build Back Better plan, we lost that bid for the security seat. Maybe now we could be concentrating on what is needed for Canadians and to concentrate on that. And again, going back into the black hole of government approach has not been helping us. One of the comments that was made by Ms. Lambropoulos had to do with the discussions that had taken place and the lobbying efforts. I'd ask Minister Baines, what information did you rely on to issue the government's order in council from August, effectively calling into question the CRTC's decision in 2019 on final wholesale access rates that would substantially slash the rates that consumers pay for internet service? And the reason I'm asking for that information is that the CRTC spent 6 years arriving at their decision, reviewed thousands of briefs. We know from the lobbyist registry data that there's more than 200 lobbying interactions from large telecom players leading up to the issuance of your order in council. What information did you rely on?
Thank you very much for the question. And what your question underscores is the statement that I made with regards to our overall policy direction. And that was highlighted in the policy directive that I provided. over a year ago, which is we need to make sure that affordability is at the center of all the decisions we make going forward. But we need to strike the right balance for investments as well. And so my guidance, because government sets policy, we don't set the rates. Our guidance is to make sure that our policy direction is very clear when it comes to finding that balance between affordability and investments for high-speed internet connectivity.
Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. It's an interesting answer, but actually many people would disagree. In fact, one totally independent organization, which is Open Media, that represents no other interest other than monitoring the groups on around the internet, notes in an article, and I'll quote for you, that your actions and your ordering council undermines Canada's best chance for affordable internet. And it goes on to say that on August 15th, the government announced that the CRTC's wholesale internet rates were too cheap and might undermine investments from telecom giants, which is what you're saying right now. So given that CRT spent 6 years studying the matter, what's the basis for coming to that conclusion? Once again.
Yeah, my understanding is that the CRTC has made no final determination in terms of that they're continuing to look into this issue, that they're doing further consultations and a review of it based on some of the feedback that they have received. I can tell you right now, from my perspective, affordability is important, and making sure that Canadians have access at affordable prices for high quality networks is important. And that's the policy direction we gave. Not only did I say that in my statement for the wholesale rates, but I was very clear about that in the policy directive that I issued to CRTC. And so we made it abundantly clear that we want to have affordable prices for Canadians, but at the same time, we want to make sure we invest in broadband, that we invest in rural connectivity, and that we deal with the digital divide.
Well, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Minister, and again, this ties into the 2019 policy directive that you gave to CRTC. You noted that their work and their decisions should lean towards focusing on the interests of consumers, which you've spoken about. But will you now be issuing another policy directive to CRTC, overturning this and suggesting that they now focus on this new so-called balancing agenda based on the discussions that you've had with major telecoms?
First of all, I work with everyone. I engage with stakeholders across the country, with small internet service providers, with advocacy organizations, to hear all the different points of view. That has helped shape our policies in the past, and that continues to guide us going forward, which is our razor sharp focus on affordability. That is why we introduced in our platform to reduce cell phone bills by 25%. And that is why we're providing quarterly updates for those plans that we committed on, and we're seeing progress. And that is why, as a government, we're investing in programs to make sure that Canadians have access at affordable prices.
Thank you very much. And I know I just have a few seconds left. One of the key things that we want is reliability, because we have our whole communities now that are online, and many of them and small businesses are suffering. So as we look for cheap, let's also be looking for reliability and make sure that we are getting that out of the suppliers that we have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I understand that Minister Baines has an announcement to make, so he has to leave. We do have one last slot question for Minister Joly. So Minister Baines, thank you so much for being with us today. And with that, I will turn to MP Amos. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank Minister Baines and Minister Joly. Your presence here today is highly appreciated. I listened quite attentively to the discussion between Minister Joly and the MP for Abitibi coming, especially on these SADC agencies. I remember the election in 2019 when the Bloc Québécois often raised the issue that Quebec is ours, the regions are ours, but all of a sudden they are saying that these organizations are federal agencies that have been entrenched in Quebec for a long time. In the Gatineau Valley, they've been around for 40 years, these SADCs, with their boards. So they are entrenched in the organization, but funded by the federal. So Minister Joly, I want to hear some more on the interests of our SMEs, our small and medium-sized and small communities, as far as expanding these opportunities. That's funding this very important funding from your department towards the SADCs, what the impact of that is. Thank you, colleague. I know you are a strong defender of these SADCs. We have often discussed them, so I'd like to thank you for your work. They are very important for two reasons. We must be always able to support regional development. And regional development can only be done by and for the regions, by and for the entrepreneurs within the region. That's the first. Second, as federal government, we have never been so present in people's lives because of the pandemic and all the service and assistance, emergency assistance. And the SRDC have helped us to be even closer to the community. We offered support to businesses that often had difficulty even contacting their banks that might be hundreds of kilometers away, and even to the caisse populaire in the region. So we played that role to ensure financial protection for corporations in the region. So we wanted to give a new mandate to the SADCs in the pandemic. They became like microfinance organizations, not only in Quebec, but throughout Canada. Thank you for your answer. I fully agree. These finance institutions are very important. I have examples, Pantiac, Val de la Gatineau, Colline. They have benefited from about $1.5 million injected into them during the COVID pandemic. And as you say, it's a long-term investment. The funding will be recycled through the SMEs in the region. There are loans of up to $40,000 right now, and some of them are non-refundable. But there is these possibilities for reinvestment of funding. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Minister, for your strong support for the SRDC and the full network of this finance institutions for their hard work. It's great. It shows the entire relevance of the federal government in the daily lives of our regions, and this is in a framework where in the past we saw how the provincial government took a back step in terms of investing in regional development, so the federal government becomes more relevant. Yes, in the past, the Quebec government made cuts in regional economic development, so we stepped in to play that role. So what we are doing is historic. We have just refunded the SRDCs for the next 50 years. At the start, the budget was about 30 million. Currently, it's about 120 million. So it's a network that will have a huge impact. So thank you for your questions. Thank you, Minister. To conclude, it's the federal government, we are always present in the region. Thank you for your work. So thank you, Madam Minister, for your time, for your testimony today. So we will stop just to move to the next meeting.
Very much, Minister Joly. And before we start the rounds of questions, I just want to introduce the folks that are with us for the technical portion of this meeting. I will not read out all of the titles. You have them on the notice of meeting just to save time. With us today from the Department of Industry are Simon Kennedy, Paul Thompson, Douglas McCock, I'm going to say wrong, McCockney, Mark Sean, Mary Gregory, and Eric Dagenet. So with that, we will start our first round of questions. And with that, we go to MP Sloan. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a few questions for Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Dagenet, whoever would like to answer. I asked some of these questions last week, and I just want to dig in a little bit deeper. There's a few major internet projects in Ontario. One in Southern Ontario called SWIFT. One in my area called EORN, who are looking for over $200 million from the federal government to complete large-scale internet programs. And the issue that we're seeing is that there's funding that's been announced. There's a couple of different streams, but there's some confusion as to which streams are best. In my area, we're looking for over $200 million. The rapid funding has a cap of just over $100 million. The EORN project, of course, is almost like several mini projects rolled into one. And so I just would like some advice as I'm dealing with the EORN officials, and I know that you guys speak with them as well. What's the best way to navigate these funding streams? There's different deadlines for applications. And is it possible that these funding streams could have been, tailored better to some of these large-scale projects? So if someone could just give me some comments on that, thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't know whether people can hear me. I know there was microphone trouble earlier. Is this working okay?
I can hear you, but I'm not sure if translation has the capacity. If you could make sure the microphone is as close to your mouth as possible.
I don't want to eat into the time of the honorable member. Maybe I'll go in translation to let me know if it's a problem. So just to say, we are quite conscious of both of those projects. There have been discussions with the proponents of both. I mean, I think our position would be we want to make sure that that we stream project proponents to the right window. If they're small projects that are
unfortunately, Mr. Kennedy, we can't hear you. If you're possibly can get a little closer.
How's this? Is this better?
It's a little better.
Okay, I can turn the gain way up. How's that? That's as high as it goes. That's all right? Okay. The rapid response stream is really meant for smaller projects. I would characterize them as a bit more opportunistic, where the government can work with the proponents, swing into action, and get something built out relatively quickly. It is not designed for large projects in the tens of millions of dollars, but certainly the Universal Broadband Fund can handle projects of that size, and in fact, we anticipate that there will be projects of that size. So I think the main advice I guess we would give is we should keep talking with the proponents to just better understand their needs and their ambitions, and how the UBF could help support them. But just to let the member know, we're already talking to both SWIFT and EORN. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Do you feel that the Universal Broadband Fund was rolled out in a way with these projects in mind? Because there's been some concern with some people I've been speaking to that neither of the funding streams maybe is as tailored as it might have been, and these projects, of course, have been on the table for years.
I think, Madam Chair, I guess what I would say is we anticipate a wide variety of different types of projects across the country. We may wind up partnering, for example, with the Canada Infrastructure Bank on certain very large projects where there might be, for example, private financing involved. There are going to be much smaller projects sponsored by very small communities. So at the end of the day, we have a program that's going to be able to accommodate a diversity of different players operating with different scales. So I think we're fairly confident we have the flexibility needed to deal with different kinds of projects, provided that that they're achieving the outcomes that the government is seeking.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about supercluster funding and where the various clusters are at in terms of utilizing the funding that have been previously announced. Can you give us an update on the superclusters initiative?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd be very happy to do that. I think I'll have to write back to the committee, which I'll be very pleased to do, to give a more detailed accounting. What I can say is, and it's been noted in the press and certainly noted publicly, that the superclusters took a bit of time to kind of get going. I think in some respects that was anticipated. This is a new kind of policy initiative for Canada. Other jurisdictions around the world have done this, but for Canada, this was a relatively kind of new approach, and it took some time to build the connections and build the ecosystems. What I can say is that the funding has really begun to ramp up, and that indeed the superclusters are committing to projects, and that they have been able to leverage the leverage of private sector dollars has actually been higher than the minimum that was anticipated in the program. So we feel that these superclusters are producing really good results. There's been some really, really interesting projects, important projects that have been done in the context of COVID-19. For example, the supercluster, the NGen, the next generation manufacturing supercluster, has supported, the production of ventilators and face shields and other kinds of needed medical supplies for COVID-19. So again, I'd be very happy to send an accounting to the committee with details of the current spend. Thank you.
I have one last question here for you. Given some of the confusion that is happening in my riding with some of these funding streams, is it possible that some departmental officials might be able to give a briefing to people in my riding about how the UBF works and which funding streams are appropriate?
Madam Chair, I certainly don't see a problem with that in principle. I mean, we actually would like to make sure that private sector players know about our programming, are able to access it. We do have a website, which I'm not suggesting is a substitute for an in-person briefing, but actually that where people, private sector players, can go and fill out details, and it provides a very good pathfinding service to all the available programs and services that business might benefit from. So I would just be happy to provide information on that as well. But we're conscious there's a lot of programs out there, and we want to tailor the offering to the businesses. So we have a website that does that.
Thank you very much. Our next round of questions goes to MP Jasic. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the officials for being with us again this week. Deputy Minister Kennedy, one of the things that Minister Baines alluded to was really the magnificent effort made by our businesses in terms of retooling and producing personal protective equipment, so that now apparently some 50% is being made domestically. This was something we explored at the Health Committee this summer, and really it was a remarkable partnership in essence between the businesses and government to ensure that this happened. So going forward, I'm wondering if you could tell us if there were some lessons learned, how it looks in the future to increase made in Canada equipment, particularly for personal protective equipment, but perhaps with a more focus on the domestic market in general.
Madam Chair, I could give some personal reflections as someone who was closely involved in this initiative and kind of saw it unfolding in real time. I can think the first thing would be, I personally, as a Canadian, am thankful that we have a manufacturing sector, a really capable manufacturing sector in Canada. It was very instructive to see how quickly these very sophisticated Canadian manufacturing operations, in a time of great national need, were able to actually pivot their operations to make very different kinds of products. We haven't really seen anything like that, I think, since the Second World War, but it was really interesting to see that up close. And I think an important lesson for me was, having that kind of national capacity seems like it's important. And successive governments over many years have supported, the manufacturing sector, the automotive sector, for example, the aerospace sector. So I think the fact that we actually had some national capability, I think, provided an advantage. The second thing is that some of the investments, actually many of the investments that were made, I think will have probably an enduring legacy. So if you look, for example, at some of the investments that have been made in N95 respirator production, those are investments not for the next year or two. That's a multi-year investment for a company to put that kind of facility in the ground, and that will potentially stand us in good stead for the longer term. And the third thing is to say, I think these are policy decisions that governments will have to reflect on. But clearly, there's a lot of discussion now going on, across the country about what some of the longer term, legacies might be of the pandemic, and what kind of competencies and requirements Canada might need for the longer term. And those are reflections that are going on now. And I think some of the lessons learned from the Made in Canada project could be very useful in determining a long-term picture. So I hope that's helpful.
Well, thank you very much. Minister Baines also alluded to the potential for vaccine production in Canada. And we know that there are many universities and private sector players in Canada involved in looking at potential vaccine production. But we also know that through PSPC, that Canada has already basically entered into contracts with some 7, I believe, companies, and at least 3 of them are showing very promising results. And I'm not sure if this is appropriate to ask you specifically, but is there an opportunity through those agreements with companies such as Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca to actually produce the vaccine here in Canada on some sort of licensing arrangement? And I just am really intrigued how this could potentially work.
Madam Chair, I probably won't speak to the specifics of some of the contracts just because I'm a little unsure of my footing in terms of what is covered by kind of business confidentiality and what is not. So the specifics on those might be directed to public services and procurement. But what I can say is Minister Baines and the ISED ministry, I've certainly been involved in this. There has been a great deal of work to build up and support as the honourable member noted, the Canadian domestic biomanufacturing sector. And indeed, it has already been noted in the media, a number of these international leading vaccine candidates actually have Canadian technology as part of it, in them. They're actually kind of Canadian players that are part of it. And the government has made investments, for example, in companies. Abcelera in British Columbia is a good example that is manufacturing or discovered and is involved in the production of a leading monoclonal antibody candidate. This is to help deal with the symptoms and the severity of COVID-19. The government has invested in vaccines domestically. Medicago of Quebec City is perhaps the best example. This technology is very well regarded. A major investment in Medicago. The government has also invested in the expansion of production capacity, for example, at the National Research Council's Royal Mount facility in Montreal, to be able to produce a kind of a much larger number of doses. And that build-out is happening right now. So there has been, in concert with the work, Madam Chair, to kind of secure vaccines from the international sphere, there has been a sort of a parallel line of work, quite aggressive line of work, to build up Canadian capacity to invest in promising Canadian candidates and in Canadian manufacturing. So obviously, there's been a lot of international press on the international candidates, but there's kind of a Canadian side of the story that perhaps needs some telling as well, which has been a key feature of our work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Jacek. Maintenant, on va avec député Lemire.
So, Mr. Lemire, you have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you. Earlier, Mr. Baines was repeating himself. I'll ask you the question based on an answer he gave me in 2018. Auditor General report saying that connectivity has known some great delays. We recommended to take away that delay. So the science and economic minister did not talk about a strategy, but a full global approach. The audit committee said we should bring together federal, provinces, non-profit. Could this sort of consultation be done soon? And if so, I would like to participate in it. Thank you. I would like to make sure that I'm using the right channel here. Can you hear me? Is the translation working? Okay. I think this issue can be better answered by the minister. They can give you the broad political perspective, but I can tell you we have a consultation and coordination table. We have worked very hard to bring together key stakeholders when you're talking about internet and connectivity. And I can assure you we do have a good plan to make sure that there is better coordination between the different stakeholders in the region. In 2016, Internet access was declared an essential service. So why does broadband in the hands of the private, as Minister Baines said earlier, public-private partnership when there are these failures in connectivity in connecting all citizens? Yes, Madam Chair, I think this question can be better answered by the minister. In Canada, currently, we have major stakeholders, but there are also smaller companies, and we decided that it was better to take into account the reality in Canada. There are examples internationally where countries might have chosen a different path, but there are pros and cons. But that's how we've chosen to go about it in Canada. So go with the players in the field, and we think we will succeed with that, and to achieve greater connectivity for Canadians in a short period. By 2025, we think about 90% of the country will have broadband connectivity. That's not exactly what I wanted. I can understand that it's a realistic goal for you. Since 2009, there are programs, so many of them, but connectivity is very slow. Those that own broadband and the majority of distribution are deliberately slowing down this to get as much money as possible from taxpayers. The people are funding this infrastructure. Don't they have a right for connectivity? That's what we have in my region. There is a giant, Bell, not to mention Bell. They're working with Telebec and Cablevision. They have a subsidy, and up to 2021, they have time to do that. We know that a branch doesn't really provide internet everywhere, but at the municipal level, fiber has been there since 27. So if the supplier wants to use its own fiber, the network is 50 kilometers. Why does it take 4 years for 50 kilometers? Bell is strong enough to support the project financially, even if they haven't received their full subsidies. So why do these programs that should connect everyone, how is it that it can't be done quickly? Why do we have to wait 5 years? Madam Chair, I can ask my colleague to talk about this specific project. I'm not aware of the details of that project, but internet projects are typically infrastructure projects that are quite complex. These cannot be carried out in a relatively short period, like 6 months. It requires longer time frames. Maybe Eric Dagenet can provide you some detail. Thank you, Mr. Lemay, for your question. You know, Quebec has a consultation table on access to infrastructure. We participate. The CRTC is also looking at this issue. If the specific project you're talking about in Mossad, I would like to look at the details of that project to see if there are any specific obstacles. That program is unfolding too slowly. There were recommendations made for connectivity. We would like to know the service standards, time frames, the audits that you're carrying out as a department to make sure that connectivity is done fast. And with the little time I have left, maybe we could give bonuses for those who complete their projects quickly. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have, so...
Massey, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for our guests being back today. And I'm going to follow up with, and I want to correct as well, too. I was using a term, overturn, last time, which was incorrect. So I stand to be corrected and did so. I appreciate that. What I was really looking at was the kind of the meddling is the word I should have used. And it's with regards to the CRTC's decision. And then it also resolves a statement from the Governor and Council, which said, whereas in considering the petitions and all the information and advice received with respect to them, the Governor and Council considers that a final rate set by the decision do not, and in all circumstances, appropriately balance the objectives of the wholesale service frameworks recognized in Order on Council PC 2016-332 of May 10, 2016, and that they will, in some instances, undermine investment in high quality networks. So I guess my question from that is, what is the department's kind of response to that taking place, and and we've seen some market changes related to that.
Madam Chair, I think I'm happy to provide talk sort of generally about this issue of balancing, as the minister discussed. I won't add any kind of color commentary to the Governor and Council statement because it's, I think the statement obviously stands on its own, and the CRTC is undertaking a kind of its own reconsideration, if you like, of the matter. But I think in terms of balancing, I mean, certainly, as a department, we are obviously seized of the issue of affordability. We have a variety of programs to support affordability. We want to make sure that Canadians, no matter where they live, get access to high-speed internet. We certainly understand that this is a very, very important service to be made available. With regard to wholesale internet rates, if I just kind of generalize, the issue is that, well, of course, you want to have rates that kind of are affordable, and you want to have rates that that people can they'll be able to get access to the service. There continues to be a question of areas of the country where there is either no service built out yet, and so you need a facilities-based provider to actually go in there and lay fiber or actually build out service, like the actual capital investment to actually build the network. And there are areas where, and one of the honorable members mentioned earlier about reliability, where you have areas where you have a network and you need to make investments to maintain the network and upgrade it. And so there is, I guess I would say, generally a concern that we make sure that the wholesale rates are such that they achieve the affordability objective, but also that they don't inadvertently discourage the continued maintenance of the existing network, so that it falls further and further behind because the business case to maintain it is perhaps not there, or that it discourages the build out into areas where there is no service. And so this is not an abstract issue. If I was to be absurd, if you set the rates at at zero, there'd be zero incentive to build up the network. So balancing.
Right, but what the decision spoke to, though, was the rates in competition in urban and suburban areas, but this is conflating that to like rural and remote. So how is that justified in terms of a preamble like that that's confused the market? It led to some alterations, and then it related to suburban and urban capacity, but now it's being attempted to be bridged to rural and remote. I don't see the benefit to consumers for competition and affordability.
I think we're going to wait to see what the CRTC does in its reconsideration of the matter. But as I say, I think the GIC's statement probably has to stand on its own.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough, and thank you for that. I do want to move to auto policy. How much is left in the auto? There used to be a separate auto innovation fund that was merged to the larger fund. How much of that fund is left for auto investments? There have been some progressions, most thankful to Unifor in contract negotiations that have secured more investment. Unfortunately, Canada is still one of those countries without a national auto policy, especially during almost a platinum age of auto as we move to the green and clean and more competition. You look at Detroit right across where I'm at, where they've had upwards of 12 billion in investment, and we've had far less than that. But how much is left in the funds from the commitments that have most recently been made? Do we have those numbers, perhaps?
Madam Chair, I don't have the specific numbers available. I mean, what I can say is I think that we're in active discussion with the automotive companies. The government is clearly committed to the future of the automotive sector. I think that message has been given loud and clear. But in terms of the specifics that are currently in the fund, I don't have those available.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that because I know it's been amalgamated with other funds, and then there have been a series of other announcements too, even some aerospace, and so getting an updated version of what's there and would be very helpful. With that too is in terms of innovation for the monies available for the hybrids and the other things. I had fought to get the Windsor minivan included in the $300 million program for auto incentives. Do we know what money is left in that fund? It was for 3 years at $100 million. And can we get a breakdown as to what vehicles were purchased with those funds and what's available still?
Unfortunately, yes, you are out of time. I'm not sure if it's possible. Perhaps you can maybe circulate that information to the clerk, who can circulate it to the committee.
I can follow up on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to my witnesses.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will now start a second round. We will not be able to complete the second round as we have votes with respect to the mains. So I will start with MP Nader. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Kennedy, and the other departmental officials for joining us today. I want to follow up very briefly about something the minister said last week. I asked her whether how quickly the applications through the rapid stream would be adjudicated. I'd suggested 4 to 6 weeks, and she said hopefully less than that. I was just hoping if you could provide some clarity on how quickly those applications will be adjudicated.
Madam Chair, I think we obviously aim to go as quickly as possible. I think it will depend to some extent on how quickly we get applications in and the quality of the applications when they come in. And as the minister noted at the last meeting, there is a pathfinding service where we work with applicants, to kind of help them out with the application process. So I think there are some dependencies in there, but we would aim to go as quickly as possible.
To that end, you mentioned how quickly applications come in. To date, have any applications come in?
Madam Chair, maybe I'll turn to my colleague Eric, who runs the broadband programming, just to see whether or not we've received any yet. I'm not aware one way or the other.
Yeah, I checked, and they think we've received a couple, but they hadn't even opened them when I checked this morning. But they are starting to come in, and there's certainly a lot of interest by a number of ISPs to send in applications under the rapid response.
Okay, thank you for that, and perhaps we can circle back at some point in the future to determine how many applications do come in on that, and how quickly those all are turned around. One of the concerns that we've had in the past is that a lot of the funding will get eaten up by the major telecoms. In the review of these projects, will there be consideration focusing on the smaller independent internet service providers and providing funding through the Rapid Stream program?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I guess I could say is just as a general reflection, we're very conscious of that as a concern that parliamentarians have and that communities have, and that's something that we would certainly be paying attention to. I mean, we would certainly envisage, projects that would be supported by the large telcos, and indeed some of the very large projects typically would have a larger telecom provider. But there's also a lot of projects that are advanced by smaller organizations, smaller communities, and those are very important too. So I think you're likely to see some mix, and we're alive to that. As a concern that people have.
Great, thank you for that. And to that end as well, what consideration is being provided in the adjudication process to a regional approach in terms of ensuring that the different regions of the country are all benefited through both the Rapid Stream, but also the Universal Broadband Fund as well?
I think, Madam Chair, I mean, the objective with the funds that have been put in place to date is to cover, for all intents and purposes, the entire country, but for the areas that are extraordinarily difficult to reach, that kind of remaining 2%. So I think at the end of the day, the objective is going to be to, in effect, kind of, make sure every region gets covered. With the kind of, the rate limiting factor will be some of those very, very remote areas where it might require satellite or some other kind of technology. In terms of speed, I think we want to go as quickly as possible. So how exactly that kind of breaks out region by region, I must admit I don't have that at my fingertips. Maybe Mr. Dagenet could give a reflection just on the issue of kind of regional allocation, but that's, in a way, that's not really how the program's running, because we want to do the whole country.
Yeah, no, as Mr. Kennedy said, with 98% connectivity target, no region will be left behind. I think it's mathematically impossible. As long as there are good projects, no region will be left behind. And in terms of speed, a lot of that will be determined by the applications we get. Of course, if we have 2 applications that come in for the same region with similar technology, but one is proposing to go a lot faster, we will allocate bonus points, if you will, to that, and the minister may choose to select that project on the basis that it can go faster. But it's one consideration.
Thank you for that. And when you say the minister will choose, which minister are we talking about in that sense?
The Universal Broadband Fund projects. So Minister Monsef is responsible for the adjudicating on the Universal Broadband Fund project.
And to that end as well, will Minister Monsef be signing any contribution agreements with the proponents?
The contribution agreements are actually usually signed by public officials, but after the minister has selected the project.
And I think I have time for one brief question. As of February of this year, there were a few outstanding applications to Connect to Innovate program that had not yet been adjudicated 4 years on. Have those since been adjudicated?
All the projects for Connect to Innovate have been selected. There are a couple of maybe outstanding ones as a result of a recent project being pulled back in Manitoba, but everywhere else they've been selected.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deschanel. We'll now turn to MP Johari. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be splitting my time with MP Erskine Smith. Quick question to Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, the main estimate indicates that ISED is requesting about $742 million for the SIF program. This is about $170 million more than the previous year and doubles the from 2 years ago. I looked at the website. It's talking about that the program has announced 65 projects and $2 billion in contribution, and created and maintained about 67,000 jobs. Two quick questions. Can you tell me how much more of this fund has been left of the original fund, and what are the $169 million that's being asked is focused on?
Madam Chair, I'd probably have to get back to the honourable member with a table or something. There has been money that has been provided into that program for medical countermeasures as part of the response to COVID-19. There's funding in there for other projects. Automotive is an example that one of the members mentioned. So I think it would be very difficult, I think, to just pull the, kind of do the accounting out of my head. But I'm very happy to come back to the minister, to the member with a chart or table.
Okay. Can you tell us how much of the original? I believe the original fund was about 2.5 billion. Given the fact that 2 billion is used, are we stating that about $500 million is left, and we are asking another 170 on top of that?
Well, Madam Chair, the Strategic Innovation Fund is, kind of amalgamated and well, it's a new fund, but it kind of took over, if you like, a number of existing previous programs. The fund is comprised both of kind of permanent funding as well as kind of, time-limited funding when the government, if there's an urgent priority, the government can kind of put money in a time-limited basis. So there's kind of ongoing money and ongoing permanent money, and then there's kind of temporary money. And so you can't really think of the fund as like there was an initial amount and then we're drawing it down and it gets to zero. There's actually kind of a recurring amount every year that gets added as part of the base budget. So I'd have to come back, I think, to the committee with maybe a table or something that just gives a bit more detail on what the long-term picture looks like.
Okay, thank you. I yield the rest of my time to my colleague.
Thanks, Majid. So while 95% of Canadians in the highest income quartile are connected, just 62% in the lowest income quartile have internet access. Now, in March 2018, the CRTC concluded there was a gap in the wireless market for lower cost data-only plans. And unfortunately, I think what they're really looking at is very low data amounts. Have you and your team looked instead at ensuring that Canadians have access to, say, 2 gigabytes or 3 gigabyte plans, data only at a very low cost?
Madam Chair, we certainly, as part of the work we've done on affordability, taken a pretty close look at all the plans that are out there in the market. I believe my colleague, Mark Shawn, who is one of the assistant deputy ministers who is responsible for policy, who played a key role in telecom policy, might be able to speak to that in a bit more detail. I don't know if Mark is available on the system. I believe he was.
Thanks, Simon, Mr. Kennedy, and thank you, Madam Chair. So we did actually scan across all plans, and obviously the wireless commitment did look at 2, 4, and 5 gig plans as one of the sources where we were looking to reduce prices by 25%. And so we have been tracking those prices as well as part of the overall effort to look at prices writ large. And so we do look at all of those price plans, and we have continued to monitor the tracking of those.
Okay, thanks. I guess I have 3 suggestions with limited time. One is really lean into low-cost data-only plans. There is a gap. CRTC's recognized it, but we haven't filled that gap yet. 2, in Toronto at least, TCHC, our largest social housing provider, there's an example where through the Connecting Families program, we could extend the Connecting Families program by working with large social housing providers through bulk purchase agreements. And I encourage you to connect with TCHC and look into that. Three, when it comes to us living at home largely in many cases, there's significant unused data that we're paying for. Other countries ensure that that data is rolled over into future months, and I would encourage you to look at that. And my last simple question, on the wholesale rate issue, cable carriers refused to provide company-specific information to the CRTC. Mr. Kennedy, are you confident that they are providing that company-specific information? And if not, what are we going to do about it?
Madam Chair, I think that probably is a question that has to be directed to the CRTC, just given their role and given that they're kind of in the middle of these proceedings. So I make that suggestion.
I appreciate that, but if they don't provide it, then let's not let them get away with it as far as it goes. Thanks, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll now turn to Député Lemire. Vous avez 2 minutes.
Mr. Lemire for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So 2 comments. For internet, the solution is still multiplying competitors. And I think the current programs in place, especially for remote areas, is a failure. And I would really urge you to bring solutions, even in constructing programs, to make sure that all Quebec and Canadian citizens can be connected long before the 2026 goal. And also for my colleague Amos, so he should send a message to Minister Joly that in the Quebec region, funding is not only being done by the SRDC, but there are a lot of economic partners. The majority of projects funded come from the Quebec government. That's important to know. Even if we pay half of our taxes, I think that budgets for development come from both levels of government. My question, we know there are 15 major universities that have almost 100% funding in research. We should break that concentration. We should concentrate the funds towards the universities, colleges, and regions. Last August, the Quebec Universities Network, we received them. They said the federal government has to give significant monies to support economic recovery, salaries for research, employing distance learning for students, especially international students, and also funds. The co-management of these funds should be given to the provinces. So my question, have you reserved any funds have you thought of increasing the amounts for research, especially in an economic recovery perspective? And will this funding be more decentralized? Thank you. Madam Chair, maybe I should mention that the government has dedicated, I forget the exact amount, I think it's about $450 million towards research institutions and universities to make sure that they can carry out the operations in this important research areas during the COVID period. So that's the amount that has been earmarked for universities in this COVID period. There are other research programs. The federal government manages other programs related to research. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you, and your team.
MP Massey, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to talk about something that hasn't raised a lot is Buy America and Buy American, and then also our own domestic procurement that has gone directly to companies, including multinational corporations from the United States and others. Is what type of prior to COVID-19, there was always this, because of free trade, you can't do this, you can't do that. What has kind of been circumventing that for these direct procurements for our say for example some of the different partners we've had for PPE? What specifically have we been using to lock those contracts in without going to any type of competition bidding or American supply routes?
I think, Madam Chair, I would maybe just suggest an honourable member direct that to Public Services and Procurement, because frankly, most of the kind of procurement type action has been done by PSPC. What I can say very briefly to answer the member's question as regards ISED, when it comes to the work that we do through the Strategic Innovation Funds, the kinds of investments we have made through SIF, I can just assure the member that there's quite a bit of work done to protect kind of Canadian interests, Canadian intellectual property, the IP that's developed, for example, protecting intellectual property, to ensure that that those interests are protected in the contractual arrangements we reach. But as far as kind of contracting and procurement, I think it has to be the SPC that can provide the specifics.
Okay, yeah, no, that's helpful. But with, say, for example, you're going to do a contract with Ford, or say for the masts that were done, the shields down here in Windsor, and that do you have to get final sign off for any type of that with a review for trade and regulatory agreements that we have with I guess Procurement Canada or from a trade assessment?
I think, Madam Chair, I would say, without speaking of a specific contract, because again, want to be mindful of kind of, but I say generally speaking, but generally speaking, just the member's question, absolutely, like trade is a consideration, and certainly the lawyers, look at the agreements that are signed. We want to make sure Canadian interests are protected. There are, and I'm not speaking about any specific contract, but there are certainly exceptions for things like national security, emergencies, that sort of thing. And so, while as a general rule, we are concerned about Buy America, and obviously we want to make sure everybody plays by the rules, there are clear cases where, in the national interest, you can move quickly. So I would say that just generally, but we look at each one of those from that lens to make sure that we're not doing something, we're not putting our foot wrong.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will have to end our questioning because we have to move into the votes for the mains. I'd like to thank our witnesses again for their time today, their testimony. And if any follow-up is required, I know there was some documentation requested of the Deputy Minister. If you could please make sure that gets to the clerk so that he can circulate it to the committee members. With that, before us, we have the various votes under the main estimates, and I believe there is some agreement here, but I would like to ask the committee if there is consent to carry all the votes on division and report the same back to the House. Okay, I just want to see if there's some hands up. If the members of Parliament could give me an indication if they're all in agreement.
In agreement.
Perfect. Thank you. So carried. Thank you so much, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. With that, we will call the meeting adjourned.
Merci pour la traduction.